Hello, my name is Dr. Pat O'Neill with the MUSC Weight Management Center, and I'm here for the next few minutes with you to talk about BMI, what it is, and what we use it for. First, I'd like to give you a little quiz to see what you know. We have four three-letter abbreviations that all start with the letter B in the left-hand column, and in the right-hand column we have four basically definitions of those abbreviations mixed up, and your job is to match the appropriate item in the right-hand column with that abbreviation in the left-hand column. So I'll give you just a couple of seconds to take a look at that, and you can judge how you have done. Let's take a look at the right answers. Obviously, the first one, BMW, is your car. Second is a sandwich, which obviously can affect your BMI, as you'll see. BFF obviously is your buddy, and BMI, what we're talking about today, is a way to measure weight status. BMI stands for body mass index, and it's a practical estimate of an individual's weight status. It's a way to compare weights of people of different heights. So it takes height into account, and it has the same meaning regardless of gender. It's calculated the same way. And that is weight in kilogram divided by the square of height in meters. Now, there are easier ways to come up with your BMI. There are tables available such as this one that gives you height and weight, and then you can find where they intersect for your BMI. So for a person who's 5 feet 6 inches tall, if they weighed 155 pounds, that would place them in a BMI of 25. If they weighed 185, it would be a BMI of 30. On the other hand, for someone who's 6 feet tall, they would have to weigh 185 to be at a BMI of 25, and they would have to weigh 220 pounds to be at a BMI of 30. Now, shortly you will see why I selected those BMIs as examples. But there are other even easier ways to get your BMI. Obviously, there are a number of apps available that you can download and use. This happens to be one that's available free from the National Institutes of Health. There are also a number of online calculators you can use. But in all cases, you will get your resulting BMI, and you'll usually get a table such as this that helps you to interpret that number that you get. BMI is a general indicator of weight status. It's a means of screening for obesity and categorizing people within a group or groups within a population based on their relative weight status. You can see the very commonly accepted categories shown here. BMI below 18.5 is considered underweight. A BMI between 18.5 and 24.9 is considered healthy. Now, you will more often see that range described as the normal range of weight. I choose not to do that because in actuality in the United States among adults it's not normative to be within that BMI range, even though that's the healthiest BMI range on average. Only about a third of adults actually fall within that healthy BMI range. Roughly another third of adults fall in the overweight category based on BMI, which is 25 to 30, and a little more than a third of adults in America fall in the obese category, which means that their BMI is above 30. Now, these are not arbitrary cut points. They're chosen based on the relationship of BMI to a number of disease, risks of disease, and risk of premature death. These risk graphs, if plotted against BMI, typically will show inflection points at around the BMIs of 25 and 30, where the risk starts to go up at a steeper rate. So they do bear quite a relationship to actual disease risk and mortality risk. But again, these are used for classifying people against the overall population. It's important to remember the limitations for BMI. BMI is not the same as percent body fat. Now, it correlates pretty well with percent body fat, and by that I mean the percentage of your total pounds, which are represented by adipose tissue. There are ways to measure that. We do it here at the Weight Management Center. And the numbers, the numerical range of values for percent body fat and for BMI tend to be similar, but your BMI number is not necessarily your percent body fat number. That comes from a different means of measuring that. Another limitation is that BMI does not always accurately classify somebody as having too much or too little body fat. Remember, obesity refers to an excess of body fat, not simply an excess of body pounds. And there are some people who are very muscular, and as a result, they weigh more, and they have a BMI that would statistically place them in the obese range, but they really are not if you measure their body fat. Their body fat may be in a very healthy range. Now, there are a lot fewer people who are actually in this category than there are people who think they're in this category. So if you think that might be you, it would be useful to get your body fat percentage measured by someone to verify that. On the other hand, BMI can sometimes underestimate someone's body fat or obesity status if they have lower than average amounts of muscle mass, such as when people age and lose muscle mass. So again, there can be mistakes in either direction with categories that result from BMI alone. And importantly, BMI is not necessarily what you would use along with those BMI tables to determine how much you should actually weigh. That calculation, or that estimate rather, should take into account a lot of other things, and it's because it's not necessary, and frankly it's often not realistic that someone get there, or that everyone get their BMI below 30, much less below 25. For example, consider somebody who starts out at a BMI of maybe 45. They could lose a substantial amount of weight and become much, much healthier, and they would find that their BMI still falls within this obese range, but that doesn't mean that they have more weight to lose. So again, the BMI tables only tell part of the story. It's an important part, but don't rely on that solely to try to judge what you personally should weigh. In spite of these limitations, we do use BMI for a number of things. It's a very practical and appropriate approach to assessing, initially screening somebody for obesity. We use it in research all the time as a means of describing the overall weight status of our research participants. Clinically, again, it's a useful first pass screening tool, but in and of itself, it's not definitive as far as determining for certain whether you have too much body fat. When trying to get BMI, remember to use measured height and measured weight. When you ask somebody how tall they are, they often will over-report their height. Ask them how much they weigh, and they likely will under-report their weight. So again, the resulting BMI will be an underestimate, both because of the numerator and the denominator. Remember that we're talking about BMI by itself as an indicator of obesity for adults. But for children and adolescents, we don't simply use BMI. We look at what their BMI percentile is with respect to their age and gender. And that's because the normative and desired levels of body fat change over the process of childhood and adolescence. So we look at what the percentile is for that child's age and gender. So in summary, remember that these can be useful categories for letting you know where you or somebody else stands with respect to the population as far as your body weight status goes. But it should not be used by itself as an indicator of what a specific individual should weigh. That we should remember that for some people, many people, getting a BMI below 30, much less below 25, is not necessary from a health standpoint, and it may not be unrealistic for many. It may be unrealistic for many people. In fact, improvements in health can result from losing as little as 5 to 10% of your start weight, we often use that 10% mark as an indicator of success in a weight loss attempt. So you can obtain a general picture of your current weight status versus the population with your BMI, but in trying to come up with your individual weight goal, we want to take into account other things as well, what your weight history is like, any other risk factors that you have that are associated with obesity, what your current health status is, and what your family's health history is as well. Now, if you would like some help with lowering your BMI, please call us at the MUSC Weight Management Center. The number is shown here, 792-2273, and we can offer you a variety of information on a variety of our programs. And how much they cost, you can go to our website, which is also shown here, and be aware that we have discounts and payroll deduction available for employees of MUSC, MUSC physicians, and the hospital authority. Thank you very much for your attention.